Have you ever wondered if something as simple as a spoonful of vinegar could change your health overnight? Millions of people did, and that curiosity turned into a viral storm on TikTok. In one of the most shared experiments on the platform, a creator showed how just 2 tablespoons of apple cider vinegar before a meal dramatically lowered the blood sugar spike after eating 2 slices of pizza. The numbers were jaw-dropping: a drop of 40 points in glucose, more than 12 million views, and over 800,000 shares. Suddenly, what had once been an old folk remedy became a global sensation, with people rushing to test it for themselves. But here's where the story takes a darker turn. Beyond the excitement of viral hacks lies a hidden danger that rarely makes the headlines. Take the chilling case of a 28-year-old woman from Austria. For years, she faithfully drank diluted apple cider vinegar daily, believing she was doing her body a favor. The result? She ended up hospitalized with severe osteoporosis. Her bone density matched that of an 80-year-old. Even worse, her potassium levels were so dangerously low that her cardiologist warned she was on the edge of a life-threatening heart arrhythmia. One practice, 2 drastically different outcomes, a viral promise of health versus a devastating medical reality. And that's the heart of today's video. We're diving into the real truth about apple cider vinegar, the benefits that science supports, the risks that are too often ignored, and, most importantly, why taking it right before bed could make all the difference. But is that difference for better or for worse? That's the mystery we're going to solve together. Before we move on, I want to hear from you. Have you ever tried apple cider vinegar yourself? Type yes if you have, or no if you haven't, down in the comments. And while you're there, don't forget to like this video and share it with someone who might be curious about this powerful little ingredient. Stay with me until the very end, because I have an important message that could completely change the way you look at this nightly ritual. And now, to truly understand why people have trusted vinegar for centuries, we need to go back to where it all began, with the wisdom of ancient medicine and the father of healing himself, Hippocrates. To understand why apple cider vinegar became such a phenomenon, we need to travel back almost 2,400 years, to a time long before TikTok trends and modern medicine. In ancient Greece, a physician named Hippocrates, who would later be remembered as the father of medicine, was already prescribing vinegar as part of his healing toolkit. Without access to pills, laboratories, or technology, Hippocrates relied on the natural remedies of his time, and among them, vinegar stood out. He often combined it with honey in a preparation known as oxymel. This simple mixture was recommended for treating persistent coughs, soothing difficult wounds, and, most importantly, calming the digestive system after heavy meals. Hippocrates believed vinegar had the power to cool the stomach, reducing the inner fire caused by rich or greasy foods, and helping the body find balance. For the people of that era, vinegar wasn't just a kitchen ingredient, it was medicine, a tool for restoring harmony to the body when it felt overwhelmed. What's fascinating is how close this intuition comes to what modern science is beginning to confirm. Even without microscopes or clinical trials, Hippocrates had observed that vinegar could ease digestion, prevent nighttime discomfort, and support overall resilience. His approach reminds us that while the language of medicine has evolved, many of the insights from the ancient world still resonate today. By grounding our conversation in history, we can see that apple cider vinegar is not a passing internet trend. Instead, it is part of a tradition that has survived for millennia, passed from healer to healer, culture to culture, precisely because people experienced something real. And that leads us to an important question. Was Hippocrates onto something that modern science can now explain? Or were his results simply coincidence, wrapped in the beliefs of his time? This question is what bridges the ancient wisdom of Hippocrates with the scientific curiosity of today. And as we move forward, we'll begin to uncover how researchers, centuries later, are finally testing these age-old claims in controlled studies. Starting with perhaps the most famous benefit of apple cider vinegar, the ability to control blood sugar spikes, even after indulging in something as modern as pizza. From Hippocrates' ancient oxymel to modern-day viral experiments, one benefit of apple cider vinegar has consistently stood out: its impact on blood sugar. Remember the TikTok experiment we mentioned earlier, where vinegar before pizza led to a massive drop in glucose levels? That wasn't a coincidence, It was a small demonstration of a mechanism that science has been carefully studying for decades. One of the most compelling pieces of evidence comes from a study conducted at the University of Arizona, where 14 participants with type 2 diabetes were monitored. The results revealed that taking vinegar before meals significantly lowered their post-meal blood sugar levels. But how does this actually work inside the body? The explanation is surprisingly elegant. First, vinegar slows down the rate at which the stomach empties, meaning sugar enters the bloodstream more gradually. Second, it interferes with certain enzymes that normally break down starches, preventing them from converting into glucose too quickly. And third, it signals the liver to calm down its nighttime production of glucose, which is particularly important for people who struggle with high fasting blood sugar. This ties directly into what doctors call the dawn phenomenon. Around 4 a.m., the liver tends to release stored glucose into the blood, preparing the body to wake up. For people with diabetes, this can cause dangerously high morning blood sugar readings. By drinking apple cider vinegar before bed, some studies suggest that this surge can be blunted, leading to much steadier morning numbers. In fact, a 2025 meta-analysis published in Frontiers in Nutrition confirmed that vinegar intake was associated with meaningful reductions in fasting glucose and even improvements in hemoglobin A1c, a long-term marker of blood sugar control. But as with everything, there's a catch. For people who already take blood sugar, lowering medications like insulin or metformin, combining them with vinegar can sometimes lead to levels that drop too low, what doctors call hypoglycemia. And while that might sound like the opposite of the problem, it can be just as dangerous, even life-threatening if not monitored carefully. So while the promise of using vinegar for blood sugar is real and backed by data, it should never be done casually or without medical guidance. And this delicate balance between benefit and risk leads us directly into another fascinating aspect of apple cider vinegar: its potential role in supporting gut health and the hidden world of the microbiome. If controlling blood sugar is one of vinegar's most famous benefits, its influence on gut health might be one of the most underestimated. Our intestines are home to an astonishing 100 trillion bacteria, collectively known as the microbiome. And here's the fascinating part: nighttime is when this ecosystem is most active in repairing itself. That makes the timing of vinegar consumption, right before bed, especially intriguing. Apple cider vinegar seems to act like a selective cleaner in this environment. On the one hand, it supports the growth of beneficial bacteria such as Akkermansia mucinifila, a species often linked to leanness and metabolic health, and lactobacilli, which aid digestion and balance. On the other hand, vinegar creates conditions that make it harder for harmful microbes like E. coli and Candida to thrive. The end result: a more diverse and resilient microbiome, which scientists increasingly recognize as essential for everything from mood stability to immune strength. The practical takeaway is that pairing vinegar with the right foods can amplify this effect. Eating dinner with prebiotic-rich ingredients such as garlic, onions, or fiber-packed vegetables gives your gut bacteria the fuel they need, while vinegar helps regulate the environment in which they grow. At the same time, avoiding excess sugar at night can prevent feeding the very pathogens vinegar is trying to suppress. But as always, there are caveats. For people with certain conditions, like SIBO, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, or those with extreme gut sensitivity, vinegar can actually make symptoms worse at first. In these cases, even a small amount may trigger bloating or discomfort. That's why experts recommend starting with very low doses and carefully listening to how your body responds. If discomfort persists, stopping immediately is the safer option. By viewing vinegar not as a magic bullet but as a tool for creating balance in the gut, it becomes easier to understand why timing matters so much. The quiet hours of the night are when your second brain, the gut, is restoring itself, and a little vinegar may serve as an ally in that process. And yet, the benefits of nighttime vinegar go beyond the gut. As we'll see next, its effects can even extend to the heart and blood vessels, particularly in helping the body restore a natural rhythm that protects cardiovascular health while you sleep. From the hidden world of the gut, let's shift our focus to something that silently determines the health of millions: blood pressure. Many people live with readings that hover just above normal, say 130/90, without realizing the long-term risks. Over time, even modest elevations can strain the heart and blood vessels, increasing the chance of stroke or heart disease. This is where apple cider vinegar enters the conversation once again. A meta-analysis published in late 2022 reviewed the effects of vinegar on blood pressure and found modest but statistically significant reductions in both systolic and diastolic numbers. At first glance, a drop of just 3 to 5 points might not seem dramatic. But here's the reality. Every 5-point decrease in systolic pressure translates into roughly a 10% lower risk of stroke. Over years, that small change can be the difference between life and death. The key concept here is something doctors call nocturnal dipping. In healthy individuals, blood pressure naturally falls during sleep, giving the cardiovascular system a chance to rest. But many people with hypertension lose this protective rhythm. They become non-dippers. Instead of dropping at night, their pressure stays stubbornly high, doubling the risk of heart attack and other complications. Vinegar appears to help restore this natural dipping pattern. Taken before bed, it may support the body's ability to lower pressure during the quiet hours of sleep, effectively working in the background while you rest. It's not a substitute for prescribed treatment, but it can act like a gentle nudge, encouraging the body to find its healthier rhythm again. Of course, it's important to keep perspective. Vinegar is not a miracle cure for hypertension. It won't replace medication for those who need it, nor should it be seen as a license to ignore medical advice. What it can do is serve as a complementary aid, an extra layer of support that quietly benefits the heart when paired with other healthy habits. This silent, overnight influence on blood pressure is powerful, but vinegar's role at night doesn't stop there. The same regenerative window that protects the heart also fuels the immune system. As we saw with blood pressure, the night is not just a time for rest, it's when the body performs some of its most important repair work. And nowhere is this more critical than in the immune system. Roughly 70% of our body's defenses are tied to the gut, and because apple cider vinegar influences gut balance, its impact on immunity cannot be overlooked. Unfiltered, unpasteurized vinegar, the kind that still contains the mother, carries natural probiotics that nourish beneficial bacteria. By supporting the gut, it indirectly reinforces the immune system, creating a stronger frontline against daily threats. But the story goes even deeper. In November 2024, a study published in Microbial Pathogenesis tested apple cider vinegar against strains of bacteria resistant to multiple antibiotics. The findings were promising. Vinegar showed antibacterial activity, though still at the preclinical stage. While far from replacing antibiotics, it suggests vinegar has properties that science is only beginning to uncover. Timing, again, is key. Between 10 p.m. and 2 a.m., the body enters its peak window for immune regeneration. This is when the production of crucial defenders like T cells, antibodies, and natural killer, NK, cells is at its highest. Drinking vinegar before bed means you're potentially giving your immune system extra support exactly when it is mobilizing for battle. It's like fueling your army before the biggest training session of the day. But here's an important reminder. Vinegar is not a shield strong enough to replace conventional care. It will not cure infections, it will not substitute antibiotics, and it is no alternative to vaccines or prescribed treatments. What it can do is complement them, working quietly in the background to give your body an additional layer of resilience. In a world where stress, poor diet, and lack of sleep constantly weaken our defenses, even a small habit that strengthens immunity can make a difference over time. And yet, among all the potential benefits of vinegar, the one that grabs the most attention is weight loss. But does vinegar really help shed pounds, or is that just another myth wrapped in hope? That's exactly what we'll explore in the next chapter. When people talk about apple cider vinegar, one of the first claims that always comes up is weight loss. It's easy to see why. Who wouldn't want a simple drink before bed to melt away stubborn fat? But as with most things that sound too good to be true, the reality is more complicated. Let's look at what science says. In 2024, a study from Lebanon tracked participants who took apple cider vinegar daily. The results looked impressive, an average loss of 7 kilograms in just 3 months. But when compared to a Japanese study from 2009, the difference was striking. There, participants lost only about 2 kilograms over the same period. Why such a gap? Researchers suspect differences in lifestyle, diet, and body types played a role. And then comes the hardest truth of all. The only study that followed participants after they stopped using vinegar revealed that almost all of the weight came back within a month. Vinegar may help suppress appetite, slow stomach emptying, and even reduce the absorption of carbohydrates, but these effects don't last once the habit ends. In other words, vinegar doesn't teach better eating habits, it doesn't rewire your relationship with food. That doesn't mean vinegar is useless for weight control. For many, it provides a helpful push by calming nighttime hunger and making it easier to say no to late snacks. By helping you feel satisfied longer, it can support healthier patterns. But the key message here is clear. Vinegar is a tool, not a solution. Without permanent changes in diet and lifestyle, the pounds lost with vinegar will almost certainly return. This is why it's so important not to view apple cider vinegar as a miracle fix. Instead, think of it as one more ally in a larger strategy of consistency, balance, and discipline. On its own, it can only take you so far, but combined with real changes, it may help tip the scales in your favor. And this brings us to the most practical and crucial part of our journey: how to actually use vinegar safely and effectively. In our final chapter, we'll explore the expert-approved protocol, including the surprising advice that goes against almost everything you've seen online. After exploring both the promises and the risks of apple cider vinegar, one final question remains. What is the safest and most effective way to actually use it? Surprisingly, experts agree that the best method is not drinking it diluted in a glass of water, as most social media trends suggest. Instead, the smarter approach is to incorporate vinegar directly into your meals. Think of it this way: when you add apple cider vinegar to a salad dressing, mix it into a marinade, or even stir it into rice as it cooks, you get all the benefits without exposing your teeth, throat, or stomach lining to the harsh acidity of a direct shot. Pairing it with prebiotic-rich foods like garlic, onions, or leafy greens creates a synergy that supports digestion and gut health in a more natural way. This is what nutritionists call the expert protocol, using vinegar as part of your food, not as a standalone drink. But what if you're one of those who still insist on drinking it? Then there are strict safety rules you need to follow. First, always dilute 1 tablespoon in a large glass of warm water. Never drink it straight. Second, use a straw to protect your tooth enamel, and rinse your mouth afterward to minimize erosion. Third, avoid lying down immediately. Wait at least 30 to 60 minutes before going to bed. And finally, start small. For beginners, even a teaspoon may be enough to test how your body reacts before slowly building up. There are also absolute contraindications. Anyone with acid reflux, GERD, stomach ulcers, or a history of digestive sensitivity should avoid drinking vinegar altogether. For them, food-based use is the only safe option. And above all, never forget the case of the Austrian woman we discussed earlier. Her daily overconsumption led to catastrophic damage. Moderation is not just advice here, it is a rule for survival. So, what's the takeaway? Apple cider vinegar truly has real benefits, from blood sugar control to gut health, heart support, immunity, and even modest help with weight management. But those benefits come only when used wisely, through balance, moderation, and a food-first approach. Don't chase shortcuts or miracle fixes. Instead, let vinegar be a quiet, consistent ally in your everyday meals. And as promised at the beginning of this video, here's the important final message. The secret to lasting health is never found in a single ingredient. It lies in the choices you repeat daily. Apple cider vinegar can support you, but you are the one who holds the power to transform your life.